9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, people? This is Leo Bryant, licensed professional counselor, also known as Doc B in the OCR, that's Obstacle Course Racing World. I want to welcome y'all to another podcast episode of Demystifying Male Mental Health. Within these podcasts, what we like to do is kind of just explore different diagnoses, which is just fancy for things we think you may be suffering from, as well as kind of match those diagnoses up with prognoses, which is just fancy for things or tools we think we can equip you with in order to help you out. So without further ado, man, let's get this party started. All right. I hope you guys are doing well. Today's topic is ADHD. I was thinking about this topic, and I was thinking, and ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. I was thinking about this topic, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I did like 3 different recordings, and it sounded so clinical. Like I was sitting there just reading, and I'm like, you know what? This is not the point and the reason that I started this podcast. And I don't think it's the reason why you guys tune in to hear what I have to say pertaining to these different diagnoses and reasons why most men or boys are reluctant to come to counseling. So I said, you know what? I'm going to freestyle it from my head, right? I'm just going to just talk from my experiences and from my opinion, because my opinion is professional. It's professional because I'm a licensed professional counselor. So without further ado, ADHD primarily is diagnosed within children initially, right? And it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. There's 2 main differences that I want you guys just to be aware of, right? So the first type is the kind where your child is just moving all the time, and they just won't stop. They just won't sit down, and you're constantly just redirecting them over and over again. Disclaimer, this was me. I am confident that I had an undiagnosed version of type 1 ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, growing up. I write about it in my stories, the Lake Trafford Boys. So, shameless plug. If you haven't already, go to my website or go to Amazon and research the Lake Trafford Boys by Leo Doc B. Bryant and grab a copy. I specifically wrote these stories to help demystify and debunk the idea that ADHD isn't real. So within these stories and these books, what I did was I casted myself as one of the main characters using my nickname, Nod, and I just spoke on all the different adventures I went on in my mind first and then in my body. And I kind of just drug along my brothers and sisters and some of my community, friends in the community around the neighborhood. Why am I sharing this with you? Well, as you all think about your child, as you think about yourself, as you think about your spouse, and I'll get to the adult version of ADHD in a moment, which is ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder. The fact is, a lot of us, as a matter of fact, 1 in 4 kids have ADHD. Now, the myth is if you have ADHD, there's some intellectual deficiencies as well, meaning you may have some learning impairments. Not true. As evidenced by myself, I'm not slow at all. I like to joke around and say I was a C student, but I wasn't. But it's not because I can't learn. It's because my learning style, right? So I've learned and recognized throughout the years, especially during elementary, middle, and high school, that my learning style is not audio at all, meaning you can't sit and lecture me. You can't just talk at me and expect me to kind of get it. No, not at all. Not going to happen. As a matter of fact, I'm more so a combination of hands-on, which is kinesthetic learning, right? Audio, as well as visual. And I learned this about myself growing up playing sports, Little League football, basketball, baseball. I recognize that if I see somebody modeling what I'm about to do or I need to do, The other term is mental reps. I can mimic it. But even while I'm mimicking it, I need a coach to, and this is the audio part, to talk to me as I'm doing the activity, as I'm doing the drill, as I'm learning the coverage, as I'm, swinging the bat, as I'm throwing the ball, to kind of reinforce and affirm if I'm doing it correct or incorrect. So that's a primary reason why, even in my practice, or most clinicians' practice, when we're working with little boys specifically who have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder type 1, one of the biggest things we advocate for is get the kid involved and keep the kid involved. Because involvement in sports or some type of activity that involves movement and instruction and reinforcement, it cultivates and it teaches the kid, hey, when you're in a classroom setting or any kind of learning setting at home, in church, at a group meeting, anything, you have to be able to teach the people around you, hey, if you want me to be a part of this, and if I'm going to be successful, I need for you to tell me what's going on. I need for you to demonstrate what's going on, and then I need you to let me try. So in the classroom setting, a lot of times kids who have ADHD, they need tasks. They need to be that special helper that you allow to pick up and walk around and, break the cookies and give them to kids or hand out the pencils. Just give them a task. And this is another lesson that was reinforced. I remember when I was in Lake Trafford High School or middle school in Immokalee, Florida, specifically, I think 4th or 5th grade, I was a safety patrol person or kid or whatever. I didn't last long because one of the things about myself growing up was, I kind of had a tendency to break the rules more than follow them, even though in my mind I wanted to follow them, but my body was like, I think I just want to run around. So I bring up this example because when I was given a task to stop kids from running in the hallways, to, go talk to them, to kind of just be on the what do you call it when you're sitting and you're just kind of like watching. The police are sitting there with their guns or their speed guns and tracking people down that are speeders. And I was kind of like, when I was in that mindset and given that opportunity, it was easier for me to follow the rules and to, more importantly, comprehend the rules. I understood and I learned, this is why we don't run in the hallways, because I've seen a lot of unathletic kids just kind of tripping and falling and skinning their knees or running into doors and walls. I'm like, what? Y'all don't need to be running, even though I was the main culprit running, right? So again, I'm using this example because one of the other myths about ADHD is these individuals who have this diagnosis are behavioral kids. They're bad kids. Not true. All children are inquisitive. All young people have energy. Some display it differently. Going back to the comprehension part, when your mind is moving a mile a minute, you start to kind of you get into this routine where you just make quick decisions. Some will call it impulsive. Others will call it calculated. Some will call it, hey, this person just doesn't know how to make good choices, or they pick the wrong options all the time. Others will say, no, they just need to gain in wisdom, and they'll get that with age. Everybody's correct. Nobody's wrong. But I want to defer to the fact that this kid who is constantly maybe making the wrong decisions too quick, they're not making those decisions with malice intent. And that's one of the challenges most boys have with counseling or counselors or authority figures is everybody wants to jump to the conclusion, well, Leo was running down the hall. He should know better. He's also a safety patrol person, blah, 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 blah. He's a bad kid. Well, why don't you investigate the situation, the thinking process, and what triggered that young man to take off down the hallway? And I know I'm oversimplifying it, but I kind of want to give y'all an understanding as it pertains to this is one of the ways you need to engage with these young people, specifically boys, more so black boys, who you think have anger issues, who are just doing stuff to do it, who aren't thinking. It's not necessarily the case. You got to sit and learn, beginning with their learning style, how they process information, and then two, you have to then research their personality. I like to give personality tests to all my clients before they walk in, right? And a lot of them are like, "What is this for?" But there's always there's a reason for the madness, and specifically the color code test, right? I love the color code test. There's like red, blue, yellow, white, predominantly. Red is, these power-seeking people who, they're great leaders, but at the same time they can be arrogant or I hate to use a narcissistic word, but they think the universe surrounds them, but they're really creative. They're really leaders. And then you have blue. These are the easy go people, easy flowing, real loyal, hardworking, those kind of things. Then you have white. Those are the peacemakers, just nice, like saint-like people, right? Then you have yellow. They're just the fun, humorous people who like to laugh and have a good time, and they avoid conflict. Well, you couple a person's personality or a kid's personality with their learning style, and then you put them in certain environments, and voila, you get a recipe for either success or disaster. So imagine putting a person with a red personality who have ADHD, who needs to be able to be hands-on in a sit-down classroom setting for 8 to 10 hours a day. Not going to work. You see what I'm saying? However, you put that same person out in a military environment or a sports environment or a singing and dancing drama type environment, and they flourish. So again, demystifying the stigma, specifically with males and boys, or boys specifically in this scenario, my advice would be, if your child fits any of the criteria that I just mentioned, specifically, the running around part, consider getting them evaluated, not because they're in trouble, but because you need to learn them more. The second part is ADHD type 2, right? And that's the more or less, these are the kids who sit still and they don't move, or they barely move. But every time you speak to them, they're on planet Mars or Venus, or I don't know any more planets, y'all, other than Earth. They're on another planet, another world, and they're constantly just thinking, but not one thought, several thoughts. This is the part of ADHD that more girls than boys have, but we're talking about boys right now. A lot of boys have this as well, which sometimes it's misdiagnosed as autism, which in a separate podcast from this one, I'll talk about autism. So this is another part. So sometimes you have a kid who has type 1 and type 2 ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. This is not, again, this is not a intellectual deficiency, not in the least. This is simply, again, going to the learning styles. Some people do not like to be given one task at a time. They don't like that sequential learning. Okay, open up the textbook, read this chapter, then complete the questions at the end of the chapter. That's boring. Some kids like to, okay, read the chapter, finish the questions, paint this picture, listen to this music, tell them what you think, and then whenever you're done with all that stuff, just let me know. You think I'm playing? Okay, well, think about the kids nowadays. Think about how they're on their cell phones. When you walk in a room, they got a tablet going with YouTube in the background. They're playing a video game, and they're talking to somebody while they're playing a video game, as well as, I don't know, doing homework or lack thereof or whatever. Like, they're doing 4 or 5 tasks at one time. There's audio stimulation happening. There's hands-on stimulation, the game controllers, and there's visual stimulation. This is kind of the arena in which kids with ADHD type 2, they thrive. So the problem isn't necessarily that this type of kid is a knucklehead and they don't want to pay attention and they can't pay attention. No, it's just that maybe their IQ is really high. I know we're not using intelligence quotient nowadays when we're diagnosing or we're doing intellectual assessments, but I like using it because people kind of they know what it is from the movies. So sometimes a young person with a high IQ above 32, they just can do more. And if this person happens to be a male, they're labeled as your behavior problem. Is this if this individual happens to be a young lady, they're categorized as, oh well, she's really good at multitasking. She's very intelligent. So that's a whole nother debate for a whole nother time. But again, staying on point, I just wanted to kind of dispel that myth. And there's a lot of different other myths behind ADHD. I would advise you to go to unorganized.com, and they have a list of understood.org. That's what it is. They have like a list of 8 really good myths pertaining to ADHD, and they kind of give you the myth, and then they have the fact. And I was going to read that off to you guys and share it with you, but I figured, you know what, you don't have time for that, especially if you have ADHD and you're listening to this particular show. There's a reason. So now we're at 15 minutes. I don't want to go too far past 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So I'm going to segue into ADHD or ADD, right? Attention Deficit Disorder. But before I do that, let me give you the diagnosis codes for ADHD, just to give it to you, just so you kind of know. And this is the diagnosis codes. Anytime a clinician gives you that or a doctor gives you that or whomever, whatever, that means it's real, right? So you have for ADHD, F90.1, that's ADHD. You also have an associated code, which is F91.1, which is conduct disorder, childhood onset. And you have F91.3, opposition defiance disorder. And interestingly enough, you also have 296, which is bipolar 1 disorder. These are all codes used to diagnose ADHD. Now, also just to remind you all, this is just basically what, the doctor, the clinician, the therapist initially thinks is happening, which renders us a treatment plan. And the treatment plan is just a series of activities, short-term and long-term objectives to kind of help address the said disorder. All right. Fast forwarding to ADD, right? Attention Deficit Disorder. This is what I presently have. And the way I deal with it, I learned when I still I utilize some of the tools from when I was a child. And to kind of best describe these tools, the origins of how I come up with a lot of the tools that I teach adults who come to me and I notice, hey, this is one of the symptoms or this is one of your diagnoses. You can read chapter in my book 2, chapter 9, Average at Best. I kind of describe exactly how I kind of came upon a lot of my treatments, specifically how exercise helps. So getting into it, adult deficit hyperactive disorder. Adult deficit disorder is exactly that. It's the process when you're at work, when you're, being dad, when you're being, whatever title you have to be. It's your mind is prompting you to stress. You're just stressed out and you feel overwhelmed all the time. It's like there's this drum beating in your mind, and your heart is just constantly just pumping too much blood, and there's too much oxygen going to your brain, and it's almost like the movie Limitless, right? You feel like you can do everything, which results in a lot of burnout. We as men specifically, man, we burn out fast, and we don't even know we're burning out. We just kind of just pass out, and we use things to sedate us, such as, I need a beer, or I need to go smoke real quicker. And those things honestly don't help. They don't cure that drum beating in your mind, or your heart palpitations, or just that burst of energy, right? So I want to share something with you all pertaining to ADD, right? And why in men specifically, a lot of times it's misdiagnosed or it's just missed in general. A lot of men suffer from what's called the feedback loop. So let me share with you what the feedback loop is, and then I'll put it in context for you. So the feedback loop is something simple when, like, let's say an event happens. So a random event happens which sparks a thought. That thought sparks or triggers a feeling or an emotion. Then that emotion, that feeling triggers another thought. And now we're in the loop. And then that thought triggers another or creates another emotion or feeling. Here's a better example. You're rushing, trying to get to work, trying to drop the kids off, trying to do whatever it is you're doing, and you realize you don't know where your keys are. So you're like, oh my gosh, where in the heck are my keys? Instantly a thought pops into your mind. I'm going to be late to work. It's my day to drop these kids off. They run around like they're crazy. You start to feel panicky. Your anxiety kicks up. Your blood pressure rises. Anger starts to kind of bubble in your mind. And then another thought pops into your mind. Wait a minute. If I'm late to work, I got a presentation. The boss is looking at me crazy, or my employees are waiting on me to open the door. These kids got tests today. Oh my gosh, man, I'm such a loser. So now the emotion behind it is what? It's regret, it's fear, it's inadequacy, it's all these negative words. So right when you're about to just explode, or after you've exploded, you then realize the keys are in my dang hand. They're right here in my hand, or they're in my pocket, or there's some place that's just like I can't. They're like right here, right? And all of a sudden, all those emotions just dissipate. They disappear. They just out of thin air just vanish, and you just laugh at yourself, and you're like, I can't believe I was just tripping. Like I really was like blowing up, erupting like a volcano. So what I just described is the feedback loop. The feedback loop is consistent of automated or unconscious thoughts that just come out of your subconscious or your unconscious into your conscious when you're panicking. Now, what triggers these again is what? Events. So, how do we cure this without medication? Well, there's several ways to do this. Again, the goal is to demystify ADD and ADHD, and I want to kind of share with you all and share with everybody. This is why counseling is good and not bad. This is why seeing a therapist can be helpful and not harmful. One of the things I learned for myself is, one, I have to set a routine and I have to do things consistent, meaning there's a place where I place my keys. No matter what I'm doing, I always put it in a little hook in the kitchen, right? My wallet, my, headphones, things that I need when I'm commuting, I put them in the same place, in the same area, religiously, faithfully, consistently. Also, utilize calendars. I have like 3-4 different old school calendars and one electronic calendar. It's more of an appointment book. And I write down on my calendars different things. So on one calendar, it's just finances. It's like bills I got to pay when they come out automatically. And, it's like this big desk calendar. And every time I pay a bill or it comes out of my account or it's due, I check mark a box on the calendar. And it's critical that it needs to be a big calendar. Why? Because when you have ADD, you need to see stuff quickly. You only have about 3 to 5 seconds before that thought turns into what? An emotion. So the only way you can make sure that emotion is a positive emotion that releases endorphins in your blood, right, and not dopamine. And endorphins are this feel-good chemical your body produces. Dopamine is kind of like this adrenaline type chemical, and the other one is serotonin, which is sedation, kind of calms you down. So, yeah, so I got one calendar that I just write bills and stuff on. I have another calendar. It's just like my activities and hobbies, races I'm going to do on the weekend, when I'm running, my mileage, movies that are coming out, football games I want to watch. It's just my fun calendar, my hobby calendar. And then another calendar is all work. When am I seeing certain clients? When am I going to, when do I have to, take the car to get the oil change? When do I have to go to the grocery store? What do I have to buy? So so these are three different calendars. And then the next part is accountability partners. You have to have a support team. I hate to say it, fellas. I don't care if you're the CEO or the janitor. I don't care if you're in a patriarch and you're the head of the household, or you're in a matriarch and your wife treats you like you one of the kids. It doesn't matter. You have to include everybody or as many people who are supporting you in your day, and you have to help them to understand and remind them, yo, when you speak to me, make sure you treat me almost like I'm deaf, blind, and stupid. What does that mean? I need for you to watch your tone. I need for you to watch your body language, and I need for you to repeat yourself and actively listen when you're talking to me. Meaning, you say what you need me to hear, and then you repeat it and confirm, and let me confirm. Again, I know these are a lot of different steps, but these are the things that you need to do if you have ADD and you do not want to be medicated. You need to utilize tools that I just mentioned, and there's a lot more. It just depends on you and your situation, circumstances. Again, one of the perks of coming to what? Counseling, fellas. So one, use the tools, use the people around you, and three, get yourself in a nice routine. And then the last part to all of this, just to kind of finish in less than 60 seconds, exercise. Anybody and everybody who's worked with me, they know that I am a huge proponent of exercise. I typically start my days off running 3 to 5 miles, depending upon how much time I can allocate before I go to work. And this is during the work week. And I know I don't have time like y'all don't have time, but this is the equivalent to what I imagine somebody's taking a cigarette break, or something similar. It's like a way to kind of decrease my dopamine levels, my energy levels, and increase my serotonin levels, that calm agent that naturally is produced in your body. So exercising, whether it's, for me, it's cardio. I need cardio. Going and weightlifting doesn't do anything for me. If anything, it may actually um, exacerbate my problem, make it a tad bit worse. So running for me works. For you, maybe something else. I recommend cardio, especially if you have um, high levels of energy. That's your ADD. But if your ADD is you just think too much, it can be something else. It can be meditation. It can be yoga. It can be Pilates. It can be music, and listen to some music. There's a plethora of things you can do. Reading a book. There's a plethora of things. Having sex. There's a plethora of things you can do. Walking dogs. There's a plethora of things you can do to help yourself. I just had an ADD moment just then, y'all. See, you just witnessed it. Don't laugh too hard. Focus. I'm almost done. There's a plethora of things you can do to assist yourself in managing this superpower. Yes, I said superpower. ADHD and ADD is not a disorder. It is more so a superpower that you have to learn how to harness. Fellas, if you don't learn how to harness your superpower, you're going to end up hurting civilians. It's as easy as that. Think about Superman when he was Superboy, as he went through his puberty and transition period, and he was starting to recognize he has all these superpowers. Well, at first they drove him crazy, and then he had to learn how to harness them. Once he learned how to harness them, he became Superman. But Superman could have easily became supervillain had he never learned to harness them, or didn't care to learn the tools as well as teach people around him how to assist him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Demystifying Male Health or Mental Health Disorders. Please continue to stay tuned with us, and please share this podcast for those individuals who may need it, and I'm always available as evidenced by my social media. Talk to you and see you soon. Stay safe. Love you. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Deuces. Thank you. That has been our show today. I appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening to me rant and rave and explore and laugh and make up stuff. Every week, or at least every other week, I'm going to try to continue to post these podcasts. Please find me on social media. Everything, my whole alias on the Instagram or Facebook is all Doc B, Doc B26 or just Doc B. Also, you can contact me directly on our website, www.Bryant, my last name, counselingservicesllc.com. You also can just go to Psychology Today and look up Leo Bryant or just therapist in Atlanta, Georgia, and my face will pop up. I look forward to meeting you all and talking to you and blogging with you and DMing with you in the near future. Until then, salute!